lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. First off, I just want to apologise for the absence. I had exams and finishing up college and stuff with essays and whatever, so I am back now. I will be uploading more frequently now, and apologies for the 2-week break. Today I wanted to have a little chat about my experience with sex education, particularly in Ireland. This is just my experience as a disclaimer. I'm sure there are people out there who've had worse and better experiences than mine, but I just thought it would be interesting to have a little insight into what I experienced in a Catholic all-girls school. So yeah, that's today's topic. So as I mentioned, I went to a Catholic girls' school, not all Catholic, we had people of other faiths, and I was raised Catholic. I started identifying as an atheist about 15 and continue to do so now. But my primary and secondary school education was based in Catholicism, which naturally did impact on the sex education I received, but perhaps not to the extent of other schools and other countries even. My first kind of proper bout of sex education was when I was about 11. So how it's done in Ireland is school is kind of split up into 2 blocks. So you have primary school and secondary school. Primary school is from about 4 or 5 till about 11 or 12, and then secondary school is from about 12 or 13 to 18 or 19. So we got our first bout of sex education at about 11 in 5th class. Most of it was really basic. It was puberty, periods, and I'm nearly sure we discussed sexual intercourse, straight sexual intercourse, in regards to like how children are formed. Because I distinctly remember someone asking what's a condom and being told we can't speak about that because this is a Catholic school. So that was kind of the first time I ever experienced Catholicism coming into play and affecting the sex education that I received. So we weren't taught about contraceptives. I can't remember if we were taught about contraceptives in 6th class, because we got the sex talk again the following year, but a little bit more detail because we weren't as young. But I can't distinctly remember if we were then taught about contraceptives, but at the time we were told, well, we can't talk about that because this is a Catholic school. And then obviously there was absolutely zero mention of like LGBT plus relationships, and it was very much, when you're in a loving relationship, when a man and a woman love each other very much kind of thing. And it didn't really improve a whole lot in secondary school, which I will get into now. In secondary school, you're kind of taught about sex the whole way through, in my school anyway. But again, in first year, which you're about 13ish, it's still kind of pretty basic. It's puberty, periods, and sexual intercourse, like how babies are formed. And as you go on through school, it gets like a little bit more intense. But not a whole lot. Like we got some useful information, but there was still some stuff that was left like, oh, what do I do in this situation? So we were taught about contraceptives in secondary school, yippee, even though it was a Catholic school, which was great because abstinence doesn't work. You need to inform people of how to prevent pregnancy, otherwise it's gonna happen. So we were taught about different types of contraceptives, particularly in 5th and 6th year. We were given a list of all the different types of contraceptives and their effects and their I don't know what this is. Basically like their level of like working. So like, this is 99% effective, etc, etc. So that was actually really, really informative, because kind of up until that point you're only really told condoms or pill. But we were learning then about the bar and IUDs and that sort of thing. So that was really informative, except there was other parts of the sex education curriculum that were just not as informative or kind of cut out anyone who was different. In primary school, we definitely didn't talk about LGBT people. And in secondary school, we definitely did, but not really in relation to sex. So we spoke about LGBT relationships in younger years, and we talked about homophobia, but we never spoke about sex between 2 men or 2 women. It just was not something we discussed. Probably from the standpoint that then you're talking about sex from a purely sexual point of view, because gay people are not having sex to create children because we can't. So from that standpoint, you aren't looking at sex as something that's purely reproductive, which is probably one of the reasons why they didn't talk about it, because pleasure never came into sex, particularly for women. We talked about like wet dreams and stuff, but we never talked about the fact that women, you know, ejaculate, orgasm, whatever. But we talked about ejaculation for men and orgasm for men, but we never discussed it for women. So that was one part. And then obviously, I mean, well, it's pretty blatantly obvious that the Catholic Church is homophobic, but my school, like, despite being Catholic, like, we celebrated like a Pride Week, and we had like posters, and it was pretty like good with the LGBT people. So it was obviously just kind of the curriculum we were being handed was just like, we're not discussing that. Nuh-uh. That obviously becomes a problem when you're talking about things like STIs. So again, we were taught about STIs, the different types of ones, the symptoms, that sort of thing. But we kind of weren't taught what to do if you get one. It was very much kind of like, here's what it is, here's how it passes on. And there was a lot of fear mongering around how it passes on. So Johnny has sex with Moira, and then Moira has sex with Tim, and blah, 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 blah. So like basically it was like, if you be a slut, you're going to get an STI, which is completely ridiculous. Because anyone can catch an STI. You can catch an STI the first time you have sex. It does not matter. So we were taught like, okay, wear a condom because that will protect you from STIs. But we weren't really taught what to do if you get an STI, or how to get tested for STIs. There's clinics, colleges have STI screenings. Obviously you can go to your doctor, that sort of thing. But there was never really any informative information like that. It was just, don't get one. Kind of like the whole like, don't have sex so you won't get pregnant. Don't have sex with a condom so you won't get an STI. I mean, okay, you won't, hopefully. But that was kind of it. And in relation to that then, there was no discussion on how, as an LGBT person, you could prevent an STI. Because, you know, it was like, wear a condom. And I was like, well, what if I'm not having sex with men? Like, because women can catch STIs from other people with vaginas. Like, it's, you know, that can happen. And I actually asked about that, and the teacher did admit that she didn't know. I knew. I just wanted to kind of put the question out there and see what the knowledge was. But I just kind of said then as well, and hope that she might then go and maybe research. I don't know. I'm not in the school anymore, and it's not something I'm going to ask about. But yeah, STIs was very much a fear-mongering thing within my experience of sex education. Obviously, things like abortion was not mentioned. At that point, abortion was still illegal in Ireland, so it wasn't even a possibility to have an abortion. The way I was taught was very much like, if you get pregnant, you're going to have this baby, that's it, end of story. So it was very much like, we had a lot of stuff coming out of the teachers that was really, really harmful and really damaging. A lot of stuff that kind of said, men are less mature than women, so if you get pregnant, he's going to leave you alone with that baby. Like, really kind of wow stuff. One teacher telling us that if we're sexually active, we should be taking folic acid because we have a duty to protect a potential unborn baby. So for anyone who doesn't know, folic acid is something that people who are trying to have a baby or people who are pregnant take to prevent spina bifida. So we were just told if we were being sexually active, we should be taking that as well, under this complete assumption that we were going to end up having a baby or getting pregnant, or that we were even having heterosexual sex at all. So that was really damaging. There was no discussion of even foster care or adoption. Not that the systems are great, but I mean, it in a country that doesn't have abortion, or in place of like pro-life people love to say, oh, just foster care and adoption. It's funny that it kind of wasn't brought up. It was just assumed you're going to have this baby and your life's going to be over, which is really damaging as well, because there's several people who have babies young and who live perfectly fulfilling, great lives. So there was, in a way, then I guess fear mongering around pregnancy as well. Another thing I noticed that kind of really bugged me was a lack of discussion around discharge and a lack of discussion around vaginal infections, particularly in an all-girls school. So I don't even really remember kind of being taught about discharge. I'm sure we were at like a younger age, but we weren't kind of taught about what's normal, what's not normal, you know, you should go to your doctor if it looks like this, etc. And then in relation to vaginal infections, because you can see the symptoms coming out in discharge and some of those. We weren't taught about things like yeast infections, anything like that, which are perfectly normal things that can happen whether you're sexually active or not sexually active. It doesn't matter. So we weren't taught about any of that, and I think that should have been in there, because it would have been really important, because there might have been girls who had one or have one, and the reality is most women, if not all, or people with vaginas, are going to get one at some point, and you should know how to deal with it and what to do. We had to do a project for the sex education class, which sounds really strange, but we did, and me and my friends chose to do one on common vaginal infections because it wasn't something covered by the curriculum. And the teacher was actually really impressed by it, but again, I really hoped that like it would be like, you should talk about this please to future people, because people need to know. So that was left out, and that really bugged me. That's two things. It's actually a third thing. The third thing that used to bug me was that so I think I kind of previously mentioned it, but pleasure in relation to women. We got a diagram of a vulva, and the clit was on it, and I was like, wow, it was pointed to, but it wasn't like properly. It was this little ball at the kind of top of the vulva that was really blurry, you couldn't see it, and pointing to it was a little arrow that said clitoris, area of high sensitivity. And I was like, wow, that's just great. Like, so bad, like so badly done. Like, that is just, oh, I was like, oh my god. I don't even think we really then talked about it, because God forbid people have sex for pleasure or just masturbate even. That was a word that you were never gonna get here, masturbation. I can't even imagine even the teacher saying masturbation. Oh god. All in all, it wasn't a terrible sex education experience. It could have been way worse. Like, I know for a fact there was boys' schools that weren't even taught about condoms. Like, that terrifies me. That shakes me to the core. But there's definitely areas that could have been picked up on, and that's maybe not necessarily the school's fault either, because the sex education curriculum that is given to schools by the Board of Education is really outdated. It's from the 90s, so as far as I'm aware, teachers kind of have to fight to even talk about some of the stuff that we got to speak about. So the sex education system definitely needs to be updated. I believe at the moment there is a bill being pushed by one of the political parties here to revamp the sex education system, but as per usual, there is fear mongering and lies being told about it, saying that 4-year-olds are going to be taught about masturbation and that sort of thing. Not true. Go read the bill for yourself, or go read the bill proposals. Don't listen to the likes of Niall Boylan on the radio, because they're reactionaries. They say stuff like this to get reactions out of people and to scare people. There is a word for it. I can't remember right now, but it's like a mass panic. And maybe that is what it's called. But cultural panic? No, it's gone. But there's definitely a need for change, but there is people who recognise that, and that's really good, because the sex education I got, as much as it was not a bad one, should have been better, and there's people who got worse than me, and that's just not acceptable. If you are looking for any resources kind of about sex or about discharge or that sort of thing, I will say YouTube is a great place to learn. There's a lot of people on here who share their own stories about these sort of things. There's also a lot of medical websites that will talk to you about common vaginal infections and stuff like that, where none of them will tell you that you're going to die. But there's a lot of information out there. I'm sure there's some on the HSE website as well, the NHS website. So the resources are there. It just might be a case of you having to unfortunately go and look for them yourself, which isn't great, but sometimes what you have to do. That's what I did, but I'm just a bit of a sex nerd, so here we are. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. Well, I don't know if there's much to learn, but maybe it made you curious. And I would love to hear about your own sex education stories. Did you have a better education than mine? Was it worse than mine? Let me know, because I'm really, really intrigued to see how it's done in other schools, in other counties, and in other countries. So leave a comment with your own story if you would like to do so. Thanks for watching, guys. If you did like the video, please give it a little thumbs up. Click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell next to it so you get a notification every time I post a new video. And I will see you all next week. Bye!